second day of hearings on Coupang began this morning at the National Assembly. By the end of today's hearing, lawmakers are expected to decide on whether to file perjury charges against Coupang's interim CEO, Harold Rogers. South Korea's consumer prices this year recorded the smallest increase in 5 years by rising 2.1%. The government has pledged to make all-out efforts to keep prices in check next year, adding that inflation could ease as foreign exchange rates stabilize. Minutes released from the U.S. Federal Reserve's latest policy meeting earlier this month revealed that officials were split over the December rate cut. While most officials supported the rate cut, some officials warned that progress toward the Fed's 2% inflation goal may have stalled. Hello and welcome to our noon edition of Arirang News on this final day of 2025. We begin today with the second day of hearings on the Coupang data leak, which kicked off this morning after the first day ended past 9 p.m. yesterday. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin starts us off.
The National Assembly has entered the second day of hearings on the data breach scandal involving e-commerce giant Coupang. The Science and Technology Committee reconvened a hearing on Wednesday morning with several issues on the agenda, including the data leak, as well as accusations of unfair business practices and poor labor conditions. The hearing is being held jointly with 6 other committees. Key figures from Coupang, including founder and chairman Kim Bum-seok, have been absent from the hearings, which sparked sharp criticism from lawmakers. By the end of the hearing, the session is also to decide on whether to file charges of perjury against Coupang's interim CEO, Harold Rogers. Rogers stated on Tuesday that the company was instructed by the National Intelligence Service to meet with the suspect behind the data leak. However, the NIS denied these claims and stated that they had never issued such directives to Coupang, but rather had advised the company to make its own decision regarding the matter. While expressing its intention to pursue charges against Rogers' testimony, the NIS also said that they had only requested materials from Coupang and had no authority to issue any commands or orders to the company. Also in the hearing, the chairman of the Korea Trade Commission criticized Coupang for its handling of the data breach.
The Fair Trade Commission will closely monitor not only the cases currently under review, but also the company's social responsibility going forward.
The hearings are set to continue as lawmakers further scrutinize the repercussions of the data breach and discuss potential regulatory changes to prevent similar incidents in the future. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung will travel to China for a 4-day state visit next month. The Blue House announced on Tuesday that the president will depart for Beijing on January 4th at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The leaders will hold a summit followed by a state dinner. The Seoul-Beijing relationship, supply chains, and the digital economy are expected to top the agenda. President Lee also plans to visit Shanghai for a business event, among others. It will be his first trip to China since taking office. The two leaders last met in November in South Korea's Gyeongju on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting. And this will be the first visit to China by a South Korean president in 6 years, since 2019. And President Lee unveiled the golden key to the White House he received from U.S. President Donald Trump, as well as hopes for a stronger alliance. Posting photos on his social media account on Tuesday, he thanked his U.S. counterpart for friendship and said he looks forward to an even stronger Korea-U.S. alliance, unlocked by the golden key. In the post, he also jokingly asked whether he might use the key to let himself in if Trump happens to be away when he visits the White House next time. Trump presented Yi with the last golden key in return for the replica of an ancient golden crown that Yi gifted Trump in October. Only 5 have received the key, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Over in the United States, minutes from the Federal Reserve's December meeting released on Tuesday show officials agreed to cut interest rates only after an intense and finally balanced debate over the risks facing the U.S. economy. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has released minutes from its December policy meeting on Tuesday, showing officials were more divided on interest rates than the final vote suggested. At the meeting, which took place on December 9th and 10th, the Federal Open Market Committee approved a quarter-point rate cut by a 9-3 vote, which marked the most dissenters since 2019. The move lowered the benchmark federal funds rate to a range of 3.5 to 3.75%. While most officials said further rate cuts would be appropriate if inflation continues to ease, the minutes show rising caution. Several policymakers argued rates should remain unchanged for a period after the December cut, and some who supported the move said the decision was finally balanced. Officials said the economy is growing at a moderate pace, but they see downside risks to employment and upside risks to inflation. The meeting also included updated economic projections, indicating one rate cut in 2026 and another in 2027, which would bring rates closer to 3%, a level considered neutral for growth. Some officials warned progress toward the Fed's 2% inflation goal may have stalled, while noting that tariffs under U.S. President Donald Trump are adding to inflation in the short term, but are expected to fade by 2026. According to recent data, hiring remains slow without a surge in layoffs. Inflation is easing, but still above target, and economic growth remains strong. However, policymakers cautioned that recent figures may be distorted by data delays linked to the government shutdown. Markets expect the FOMC to keep rates unchanged in the near term, as Fed officials offered little guidance during the holiday period and signaled caution heading into the new year. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
On the economic front, consumer prices this year recorded the smallest increase since 2020. According to the Data Ministry on Wednesday, the Consumer Price Index for this year increased by 2.1%, marking the smallest increase in 5 years. Now, this comes as agricultural products saw no increase from 2024, mainly due to the base effect last year. Public services also saw a small increase of just 0.8%, following a reduction in communication fees due to the SK Telecom hacking incident. But petroleum product prices jumped around 6%, driving the overall rise in inflation, largely because of the impact of a weaker Korean won against the dollar. The government says inflation could ease as foreign exchange rates stabilize and vowed to make all-out efforts to keep everyday prices in check next year. From art exhibitions to film, creative content is taking a larger role in Korea-France relations as the space for cultural exchanges continues to expand ahead of the 140th anniversary of bilateral relations between the two nations. Our Oh Soo-young has this report.
Capturing color and creative energy through art and motion, Korea-France relations continue to broaden through cultural exchange. A contemporary art exhibition in Paris is bringing the works of 34 Korean artists, an eclectic selection from leading galleries and institutions in both countries. The theme is Colors of Korea, incorporating 오방색, the traditional 5 cardinal colors, among a variety of iconic color tones.
This work behind me is by the late artist Kim Chang-yeol. He's very well known as the water drop artist. But this work was created in the early years of his career, after he had been active in New York and then moved to Paris. So through this exhibition, even visitors who are not very familiar with Korean contemporary art come in and take the time to look at the artists' lives and their artistic practices.
As such, the exhibition aims to build resonance and connection.
French audiences tend to have a very high level of interest in culture, not only in their own, but other cultures as well. Not only young French people, but also those in their 30s and 40s, and even those in their 50s and older, now have a much higher level of awareness of Korea. As a result, interest in Korean culture has grown even further, and this is not limited to one specific field, but appears as a broader overall trend.
The exhibition is one of several programs run by the Korean Culture Center in Paris ahead of the 140th anniversary of diplomatic ties. Film screenings and performances organized by the center also offer ways to engage in Korean contemporary culture. In recent years, Korean cinema and content have gained steady attention from French critics and audiences, with the growth of streaming and online video platforms. Guillaume Legourse, who has developed some of France's largest productions, describes the impact.
Completely unique. I mean, Parasite, the movie Parasite.
Right.
Wow, it was something so new. It was very audacious, the direction, that's for the book, the scenario, and the actors were amazing. So Squid Game is another good example, and I could use the same terms about the success of this specific kind of movie and series.
Legourse says the appeal reflects the shared passionate temperament of Koreans and French, and their love for music and drama.
From my experience, we are quite close from France to Korea. I would say that where French culture is closer to Korea than many other countries. Even in Asia, I used to say that the Koreans are like the Latin of Europe.
He is hoping to bring more popular Korean content to the French market and stage live French performances in Korea. Legourse's revival of the hit musical Le Roi Soleil is completely sold out, with discussions underway about touring in Asia, including Korea.
Well, I'm in discussion now with some producer. We have a partner in Seoul. We did Mozart with him a while ago, and we would like to bring Molière, which was a big success in France and touring now in China. Of course, Le Roi Soleil. I mean, to establish a bridge. And that's also why, that's what I was telling you, I'm really thinking that the French market, well, European market in general, but French market specifically, is really ready to welcome Korean cultural projects.
Such collaborations are set to deepen in 2026 as part of a year of bilateral exchange.
Officials say more than 100 events have been scheduled to celebrate the 140-year milestone, with live performances, exhibitions and film festivals being staged across both countries. Arirang, Arirang News, Paris.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Winter holiday travel between the UK and continental Europe was disrupted on Tuesday due to a power failure in the Channel Tunnel. Eurostar cancelled trains linking London with Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam before partially resuming services later on Tuesday after the tunnel reopened in limited capacity. Eurostar warned the power fault was still ongoing and told passengers to postpone trips because severe delays and last-minute cancellations remained possible. Tunnel operator GetLink said repairs were underway and traffic was slowly being restored in both directions. It said it saw no sign of foul play or sabotage. The grandchild of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy, environmental journalist Tatiana Schlossberg, has died at the age of 35 after she was diagnosed with leukemia last year. A family statement announcing her death was posted on Tuesday by the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. It did not disclose the cause of her death. Schlossberg wrote that doctors diagnosed her with acute myeloid leukemia in May 2024 after a high white blood cell count was noticed while she was in the hospital for the birth of her second child. In a recent essay in The New Yorker, she described chemotherapy, 2 stem cell transplants, and clinical trials, and criticized the policies backed by her relative, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. In Germany, a daring bank heist has left police scrambling for answers and around 2,700 customers out of pocket. Authorities in the city of Gelsenkirchen say thieves drilled through the vault wall of a Sparkasse bank early Monday, stealing property worth between 12 and 106 million US dollars. A fire alarm alerted officers around 4 a.m. on Monday, leading them to discover a massive hole in the basement wall of the branch, and the vault ransacked. Witnesses reported seeing men loading large bags into a vehicle, but the suspects remain at large as investigators comb through forensic evidence from the scene. New York City is ramping up security ahead of its Times Square New Year's Eve celebration. At a press conference in Times Square on Tuesday, Mayor Eric Adams said authorities had no specific or credible threats tied to the event, but declared it a heightened threat environment and urged the public to report anything suspicious. Security teams will implement secondary screenings inside crowd pens to ensure the safety of the millions of expected attendees. A new historic twist was also revealed, a second dropping of the Constellation Ball. The ball will drop at midnight to ring in the new year and again in July 2026 to mark America's 250th anniversary. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
On this final day of 2025, cold wave has settled in with icy winds dragging down feels-like temperatures. Cold wave alerts are being issued across Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces today. Meanwhile, dry weather advisory remains in place along the east coast and parts of Gyeongsang-Namdo provinces. But with that continuing strong winds, please, fire safety is a must. And this afternoon, Seoul stays below freezing all day, topping out at -3 degrees Celsius. Daegu only makes it to 2 degrees under bright skies in most parts of Korea. Many of you may be planning to watch the last sunset of the year or the first sunrise of the new year. Good news, most inland areas will stay clear. And here in Seoul, the final sunset of the year will be at 5:23 p.m. But when you are heading out, be sure to bundle up well. On New Year's Day, morning starts at -11 degrees Celsius here in Seoul, and severe cold wave continues through Saturday morning. Meanwhile, there could be heavy snow in parts of Jeollado and on Jeju Island, so please take extra care.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.